The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz along with my co-host Tony Palmeri. There's been a lot of press lately about touchscreen voting and the Help America Vote Act of 2002. The county board recently considered a resolution to purchase some Diebold touchscreen voting machines, or Diebold. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I've heard it pronounced different ways. But in any event, they sent this back to committee because there's so much question about the security of touchscreen voting machines. And that's what we're going to be discussing on this edition. To help us sort of vet through some of this information are two members from the county board. Tom Widener, to my left, has been a guest on the show before. I'm sure regular viewers recognize him. He is the county board member representing a district in Neenah. And also to his left is Bill Pollner Jr. Now, Bill is serving his first term on the county board. He also hails from Neenah, and he was just elected in by a write-in vote a few months back. So welcome to both of you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Bill, you also serve on the Information Systems Committee for the county board, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Well, you voted against the resolution, and Tom, you voted for it. Let's first kind of sort out what the Help America Vote Act is. It's intended to improve accessibility to the election process, primarily for disabled persons, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's a portion of it. That's
Part of
correct.
it.
Okay, all right. And what does the other portion of it do?
Well, the portion of it dealt with the ability to accessibility to the positions, the type of machines you have to have, the type of machines you cannot have. But the part we're concerned about is the accessibility for the handicapped, primarily visually impaired.
Okay. Now, there was a resolution that you all considered at your last county board meeting. Tell us what that resolution would have done.
Okay, the resolution was basically just saying that the Winnebago County would coordinate the purchase of machines for the municipalities within the county. It had nothing to do whatsoever with the type of machine we bought, had nothing to do with whether we should be obeying the law and having the accessibility. It had nothing to do with anything except we were going to coordinate the purchase of machines for the county.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Tony.
Let's talk about the date of the next meeting and what's going to happen at the next meeting. At that meeting where the resolution was turned down, the board chair asked the Judiciary Committee to take this up again. And then it looked like there was going to be a public hearing sponsored by the Judiciary Committee and the Information Systems Committee. Wasn't that your understanding of what was going to happen?
Yes, that is correct.
That there was going to be a June 14th meeting at 6 o'clock, first at the Coughlin Center, and then it was moved to the county courthouse. But now we're taping on June 1st. Now on June 14th, instead of the public hearing, you're going to have a full county board meeting at which you're going to vote on this again, right?
That is correct.
All right. How did that happen? So that's not, is that your understanding of what was going to happen? That you'd vote on this again on June 14th?
My understanding was that it was going to be a public hearing. They're going to have a representative for Diebold there, and then also they're going to have a machine there between 5 and 6, so people can come in and kind of get a familiarity with the machine to see exactly what we're talking about.
But Jeff Hall, who's the District 17 supervisor, he says in calling this meeting for June 14th, calling for the vote of the full county board, he says Chairman Albrecht is going against the wishes of the Information Services Committee, one of the original sponsors of the program. We instructed the committee meeting to have multiple vendors there. It was also discussed to have multiple vendors in the Judiciary Committee meeting. So you're not going to have multiple vendors now.
That's my understanding.
Now it's just Diebold.
That is correct.
All right. Should there be other vendors? Would you like to see other machines?
I was under the understanding that there was going to be other vendors there.
No. So it's only from 5 to 6. It's only going to be
Diebold.
the Diebold machine.
Yeah.
So do you think that there should be other technology there, other machines there? I mean, maybe Tom might know what happened between the time Albrecht called the Judiciary Committee to call this and now.
It was only a couple of days ago I found out we're going to have a board meeting. I think looking back at the type of machine, the county clerk, the municipal clerks got together and decided they wanted to have the Diebold machine.
Yeah.
So there's no real reason for us to look at alternative machines. In the event that we turn this down again,
Yeah.
then the municipalities themselves will have to get the machines. And the municipalities have agreed unanimously that they want the Diebold machine. So
But I'm sorry.
Well, no,
Go ahead. Obviously, a lot of concerns have been raised with this machine. I'm sure more will be raised on the 14th. Wouldn't it just make good sense for the supervisors and the public to at least see the other technology available? Sounds like you'd like to see that.
I was under the understanding that we were going to. I wasn't aware of the.
Yeah.
You know.
And we're not. But you're content with just seeing the Diebold?
actually, what we need to have are machines that are compatible with the existing equipment. If we have the existing committed equipment used with the Diebold machine, we get modem access directly to the county after the election. If we don't do that, if we get non-compatible machines, we're talking about two different systems, require different programming, additional funds to do that, and we will have the possibility of error in passing the information back to the county.
But I think the argument that's been raised is what price compatibility? If we're going to have a machine that's compatible, but there are flaws in the machine, I don't think anybody would want that.
Well, I guess the question is, are there flaws in the machine?
Well, Cheryl?
There have been, and I don't know because I've never seen it, I've never tried it, but there have been tons of things put out on the internet and in well-respected publications as well, which show that there are some security flaws with the Diebold machines. And, we can all say, well, these people have, pulled certain information and are spewing that forth. Other groups may say, no, we've got this information that shows that the machines are very secure. But certainly there is a lot of information out there that shows that there are some security flaws.
Okay, we have talked with Clarion County, Pennsylvania, who has between 60 and 70 machines. They just ran the election 2 or 3 weeks ago. The reaction we got from the counterpart of our county clerk was that flawless. Had no problems with other machines. The security issue, and I'm not an expert on security or on machines at all, but we know that we can cut off, we can either secure the ports either by putting a tag on them in which they can't get over, we can disable the ports, which is the only way they could be programmed outside of the program that's done initially. So the security issue, I think, is an overrun. I think it just don't.
Let me just read you something. The state of Maryland had reports of problems with these machines, so they commissioned a group of technology experts from RABA Technologies to purposely try to hack into these machines. Okay. This is reported from the Baltimore Sun. These hackers were giddy with their success at hacking into the Diebold. They said one guy picked the locks, protecting the internal printers and memory cards. Another figured out how to vote more than once and get away with it. Still another launched a dial-up attack using his modem to slither through an electronic hole in the State Board of Elections software. The team was able to remotely upload, download, and execute files with full system administrator privileges. Results could be modified at will, including changing votes from precincts. And then a quote, "My guess is we've only scratched the surface," said Michael Wertheimer, who spent 21 years as a cryptologic mathematician at the National Security Agency. As a result of that, the Assembly in Maryland voted 137 to 0 to get rid of these machines. And that they're not getting rid of them because the Senate would not act on this. So they're still stuck with them for now. But you voted against this bill. Is it because
That's
of
correct.
stuff like this?
That was my main concern, was the feasibility of the security on that system. And there was a lot of concerns raised, and a lot of people came to the meeting that usually wouldn't come to express their concerns. So that's why it was my hope to have that public meeting like we had planned. I wasn't aware that it was just move to a straight board meeting without the other vendors being there.
So that's going to make it more difficult for you to vote for this.
I've done research on my own on the side as well. I've seen other studies as well, like Tom had mentioned about they have addressed some of the concerns on the security thing, which alleviated my concerns somewhat, but it also raised other concerns about what kind of level of complexity will you make this? I mean, do we have to keep having different layers of, okay, you got to have a checklist just to set this machine up? That's what
the
that
state
was my one concern.
Right. The state. My belief is the state elections board certified this machine on the condition of the county clerks or the election officials apply something like 5 or 6 security recommendations, and it is giving a lot of work to election officials to do that.
Any machine we get is probably going to require that. We're going to have security issues on any type of touchscreen, whether it's a Diebold or it's the one that Apple is looking for. We probably have to go through that same situation. I can't understand why. We're going to have to do something, guys. We do not have the choice of saying we don't want to do it because it may be complicated. The law says that we will provide handicap accessible machines by September the 12th.
Okay, but it doesn't. But it doesn't have to be touchscreen, because we talked about the Help America Vote Act, and that actual section says that every voting system will be there'll be at least one machine that's accessible. It says through the use of at least one direct recording electronic voting system, which would be touchscreen, but the law says, or other voting system equipped for individuals with disabilities. So it doesn't have to be the touchscreen. I mean, our clerk seems to be saying, well, because this is the Diebold one is compatible, we want to use that one. But there are equipment on the market that would allow disabled to vote, not in a touchscreen setting.
They need to be able to vote unassisted. Some of the things we've talked about in the past said they required assistance. For example, they publish a ballot. Okay, now I got a ballot. What do I do with the ballot? The ballot cannot be used in our machines. If I use a machine for the ballot, someone has to be assisted. A person was quoted in Fort Collins, Colorado, who for 40 years has been assisted voting. Okay, now he's in a situation where he can do it himself. It's the dignity of the individual we're talking about here. We should be doing this whether the federal government tells us to do it or not. We should be provided that access.
But Tom, I know you agree with me on this. The disabled want to have their vote count as much as anyone else. I mean, I can't imagine a disabled person saying, give me this privacy, this accessibility to vote, but then they have to go home wondering if the machine actually counted their vote.
But we're not sure that's going to happen. Everyone is saying we've had a problem, okay? But we're not saying we're going to lose that vote.
But that's the problem with software-driven machines.
All of our machines are software-driven.
Right.
Those we're using now.
Right.
Of course, if I can just jump in here too, let's play devil's advocate. We're not sure in any type of voting system if our vote counts, and we saw some semblance of that in this most recent recount.
But the optical scan system we use now uses, you fill out, the voter marks a hard copy ballot. So when there is a recount, you have this paper to go back to, and you can count the ballots to get the voter intent. This machine, my understanding is, leaves one of these little ticker tape. What is your understanding?
It's like a heat tape.
Yeah.
And it leaves the impression of the of the vote.
And how do you go back and recount this?
It's on paper.
It's a paper.
It's a paper ballot, in effect.
It's a roll, kind of like a cashier's roll, to my understanding.
But even the state elections board says if there was a recount request for these kinds of machines, the candidates asking for the recount are authorized to try to request the software to actually get into the machinery that made the count. Well, that can be a very, very complex.
Or you can go for the paper ballot.
But the paper in these machines is not recountable in the same way that the manual ballots are.
Well, it's a spindle.
But the voter doesn't fill them out.
No, the voter goes in the touchscreen.
Right, but the paper is only telling you what was entered, right? It's not, the voter doesn't actually fill out anything.
That is correct.
Right.
That's correct.
And the issue is, don't you think that an election has integrity when a voter has actually filled something out? This is one of the problems with these touchscreen machines, that it leaves you nothing behind that you can later go back to and say,
Not correct. That is not correct. when the person votes, if the person's blind, they have earphones.
Right.
Okay. And they basically sit back and it says, did you agree to vote for Cheryl? Yes. Did you agree to vote for Tony? No. And it goes through. When you get to the end, now being blind, he cannot read. A person using his touch tone machine
Right.
will sit there, and the ballot actually sits there. It says, this is what you voted. Okay, when the person says, yes, correct, and pushes, I say push the button, I've not used the machine either.
Right.
Then that is recycles, the next person can type. So you've got a paper backup, no matter
Right.
what you've got. So that goes in the ballot bag just with all the regular ballots. Okay, so we've got, if you want to recount, you've got paper to recount. Okay.
Okay, that's not my understanding of how you do recounts with these systems, and that the problem is that the initial counting and recording of votes is being done by the computer software program, and the issue is if there's a problem with that computer software program, it almost doesn't matter what that paper says. And I mean, just to give you an example, the New York Times, May 11th, because this issue has been discussed in other states. It's the most severe security flaw ever discovered in a voting system, said Michael Shamos, professor of computer science at Carnegie Mellon University. He was talking about these Diebold machines that have the paper and everything. Now, he couldn't be very clear about what the security flaw is because they don't want to give it away to potential hackers. Diebold admits that there's the security flaw. They say, however, it can't be corrected before the September primary. And their argument is that it's only a problem if you have some corrupt election officials that want to get in and hack the system. But would you vote yes for a system where even the company itself is acknowledging that they won't be able to fix all the problems before September?
Well, I didn't the first time. So
What would you change your mind for the 14th?
well, I was hoping that we were going to have that public hearing, but another one of my concerns at the time was in regard to that paper balloting system. You know, it's my understanding it was like a rule, like
Yeah.
Tom was saying, but then Jeff Hall had brought up a good point during the debate in the county board meeting on how that paper can be subject to heat.
Yeah.
Or
So
like,
you lose. Yeah, you can't see the.
you could
type.
possibly lose the integrity of that paper,
Right.
which throws it back to if it's a software-driven kind of device, doesn't that open up a whole litigation arm? You know, I mean, I could just see this morphing into something where it turned into maybe a lawyer said, okay, well, we need to get the software code to justify if they don't have the paper, and that was one of my concerns as well. Why I voted against it to learn more about it.
Well, and also, my understanding is that at many places, the paper jams. And then often election officials are not clear as to how to unjam the paper, so the machine might have to be taken out of commission.
Well, many is kind of I mean, it's happened. I don't know if it's been many times. It's been noted.
Lots of reports on it, and
Because I read like one or two, but I don't know about a lot.
but the California was using these exact machines that we're proposing to get here in Winnebago County, and just portion of a California Secretary of State report, we found that there were 34 failures spread across 29 distinct machines. We classified each failure into one of two categories: printer jams, software failures, where the touchscreen machine crashed, froze, hung, or reported an unrecoverable error condition. The 34 failures broke down into 14 printer jams and 20 software failures. I mean, the California Secretary of State ended up concluding that this is really bad technology.
How many votes were made on those machines? Thousands, hundreds, tens?
Well, they ended up concluding that the failure rate of these was much, much higher than anything else they'd ever used
Oh, probably paper.
in elections. But again, what I'm saying, Tom, is if we've got these reports of failures from all over the country, if the company itself is saying there's some flaws that they're not going to be able to fix before the primary,
We'll be able to ask that question on the 14th.
well, why would we purchase something that has this much doubt associated with it?
Recognize once again what the proposal is. The proposal is for Winnebago County
Right.
to coordinate the purchases. The Winnebago County is not making the decision on this. The individual municipality is making the decision. They got together. They said, this is the machine we want. Okay, so we can turn this down. And what'll happen if we turn this down is each municipality have to do that, take care of themselves. Some of the municipalities, in fact, many of them probably took the money out of the budget because they were planning on doing it this way.
Sure.
We could run into some cash flow problems, but the municipalities are the ones that are required to have the machines on hand.
Okay.
The municipalities are saying that's what they want.
Right.
You know, so for us to sit back and say, gee, there's some problems out there, guys, we're not going to provide any coordination for you, do it yourself. That's what we're talking about.
It's just a couple of points here about the municipal clerks and so forth. You know, they obviously had an opportunity to try out the machines and see how they operate. I also know in Winnebago County, we are currently using some form of Diebold election systems, correct?
That's correct.
And, I mean, they seem to be working fine. And these clerks, as I said, they have tried these things out. Could it be that because we're using Diebold right now without any real problems, that is why at least our clerk is leaning in this direction?
I'm sure that has some impact on it. We've had little problems with existing machines. They're compatible, which is a concern for the clerks. Because now we're talking about how do we get the information to the county? Are we going to call them in and say, read this, we get transposing of numbers? They're very concerned about the difficulty of having two different systems. They consider that more important than the possibility we may have some errors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we say we may, and people have run these, and like I quoted, people have run these and said we didn't have a problem. Of course, those don't make all the blogs, they don't make all
Right.
the big headlines, because people want to have headlines on the problems, not on the successes.
But many places around the country have two different systems. They don't have a problem. I mean, it's nice to have uniformity.
Allegheny
But-
County has.
Yeah, and I don't see that Allegheny County has had an excessive amount of controversy in their elections.
I think the main thing, like Tom was saying, is the compatibility issues, because Sue had, or she had told us how it was before this system it was implemented and how
Yeah.
long it took, and
Sure.
the possibility for errors when you had to do everything manually.
Mhm.
And they were there to 3, 4 in the morning,
But if in fact these machines are primarily for disabled people,
Correct.
we're not talking about a tremendous amount of votes.
No, we're not.
So the compatibility issue then to me is not an issue. I mean, all you have to do, suppose for example, the county were to select this, it's called the auto mark system, where the disabled person they literally fill out a ballot that you then run through the optical scan machine. It's not going to take a lot of time.
Except we can't do that. We don't have the optical scan machine to do that. It was not compatible with our machine.
No, the ballot, it would use the same ballot.
No, it doesn't.
That's my, well, see, we're not. But
that's my understanding is that is not correct.
Well, but this is why, Tom, we got to have these multiple vendors at this meeting, and for some reason your board chair doesn't want to do this. I mean, you've got some people who say the technology is compatible with our ballots, other people say it's not. Doesn't that mean we should have the vendor there to tell us what this can do? Because my understanding is it's just like absentee ballots. When absentee ballots come in, someone runs them through the machine, right?
But that's the same ballot we use at the voting site.
Well, my understanding is that's what some of these other machines do. They're voter assistance machines. In other words, they allow the disabled person to do the same thing that the non-disabled person can do. But for some reason, the board chair doesn't want the board to be able to know about this equipment.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
Well, why is he doing this?
Because it's gotten so political. We're in a situation where we've got to make a decision, guys. This is not a case of, gee, we couldn't decide. Sorry, guys, you can't vote.
Why do we have to make a decision? And why can't we ask the state elections board for a delay? We need more time.
I'm not sure they would do that. They've
That-
certified
well,
they've certified the machine.
All right.
So they're saying, we certified the machine, you don't like it, and you want a delay?
They have
No.
that. I mean, the state elections board itself has asked the federal government for a delay on the statewide voter registration system,
Sure.
which we don't have. So they can ask for delays, but a county can't ask the state elections board for a delay while we look into this.
And what are we going to do when we get done? We're still going to have a disagreement, aren't we?
But at least we'll have a chance to rationally look at these different technologies available. Because my fear, Tom, is what happened in, all right, here's a good example. Buncombe County, North Carolina, that's where Asheville, North Carolina is, fairly well-known part of the country. Their Board of Commissioners rejected a staff recommendation for these machines, right, saying they don't believe voters would have confidence in these machines. So they voted them down. Aren't you concerned that that's what would happen here? That voters won't have confidence?
If they don't have confidence, they don't use the machine. We are not going to all these machines. We will have one of these machines in each thing. If you don't have confidence in that machine, you say, boy, Tom, I'm in your voting place. Where I'm a chief inspector and said, I'm concerned about that machine. I said, fine, use the paper ballot, which you circle, fill in the circles, go through the machine. You don't have to worry about that.
Would the board possibly amend whatever resolution they vote on to say that we will never have more than one touchscreen machine in these polling places? Because one of the fears is that this is the foot in the door. You get one, and then all of a sudden, we lost his mic
Nope.
again.
Let me help you with that.
All right,
I'm sorry,
we'll get
guys.
it.
That's all right.
Would you support that, Bill, to say that we should never have more than one touchscreen machine?
I think that kind of limits yourself in the future. But I understand what your reasoning is,
Yeah.
that this is like the Pandora's box you're opening.
Sure.
And then they're all digital, it's easy, let's get 10 more.
And around the country, there's been a lot
Because
of
people
reported
are,
problems.
yeah, digital is easier.
I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can commit a future board
Yeah,
by saying we will never buy a different kind of machine. I don't think we can do that. I don't think that's legal.
I don't think
And I
it
would
is
vote
either.
against that anyway, but I don't physically don't think you can do that. That would be an amendment that's not part of what the particular resolution is. Plus, you just really cannot commit a future board to something like that.
All right, Cheryl?
It's my understanding that Kevin Kennedy from the State Elections Board is going to be at this meeting on the 14th.
That's my understanding.
And, I spoke with Sue Erdmer, who's our county clerk, and she said he will be there, and the main reason for him being there is to answer questions that people may have, whether it's the public or county board supervisors themselves, and hopefully quell some of the concern and discrepancies that some people believe are out there. One question that a member of our crew had, and that is how do write-ins work with this type of thing, especially in a no-count situation, like someone writes in Mickey Mouse or whatever.
Okay. Basically, what they have is just like they have on the old machines. There'll be a spot where you can actually put in a name, okay? And if you're blind, it's my understanding, I've not seen these machines either.
Right.
If you're blind, you can basically spell out the person's name and it'll be put on. That's my understanding of how that would work. So it can be done. You can do a write-in. And incidentally, a Mickey Mouse is a valid vote. We record Mickey Mouse, we record Donald Duck, we record all of those because we don't know for sure there's not a Donald Duck out there.
All right, I found a group called Fair Elections Wisconsin. They've been looking at voting technology for at least since the 2000 elections. And they wrote a letter to Sue Erdmer. And in their letter, they say, we have previewed several of the new machines and we recommend the ESS AutoMark. That's the one I was talking about, right? Which has been approved by the State Elections Board. So any voting locality that wants to use this machine can use it. They say the AutoMark is a ballot assist device that does not count votes, so security concerns are minimized. This system is very versatile and can be used in conjunction with other systems. Ballots cast by the disabled on AutoMark can either be inserted into the optical scanner or manually counted. This is probably the same way that absentee ballots are currently handled at many locations. The AutoMark is a completely transparent system that provides a voter verifiable paper ballot. Doesn't that sound something that would come with a lot less question marks than the Diebold machine?
I can't answer. I've not seen that machine. All I'm doing is hearing what you wrote and what she wrote. I wrote that. They responded to there was a response to that letter, but it's.
Yeah, the response was for Sue Erdmer to ask the State Elections Board for some evidence to refute what they were saying. And I don't understand why even Sue Erdmer isn't saying, let's bring all the vendors to this meeting. Let the public see. I think the State Elections Board has approved four machines, something like
I
that.
think it's about in that neighborhood.
All right, why can't the public see a demonstration of all 4 machines? I don't understand this.
Why didn't the public call for? Why don't you guys set one up?
Isn't this the responsibility of the elected officials?
The elected officials, we work on resolutions that are given to us. The resolution we were given was not to decide what kind of machine we have. That's not what we were there for. We were there to say, should we coordinate so we can save some monies, so we can help the municipalities.
Right.
If we choose not to do that, the municipalities make the decision. And
But
so
I
the
mean-
municipality is going to make the decision to go with the Diebold.
Okay, but when the board has been now presented with evidence, you've got the Maryland legislature voting to get rid of these things. Denver, there's a lawsuit now in place to prevent 9 counties from using these Diebold machines.
Okay.
Other states. When presented with all these evidence, doesn't it make sense for now the elected officials to step forward and say, we want to at least see what else is out there?
What can we do? I mean, so we see that. Let's say we recommend a different machine, and the city of Neenah says, no, we're going to go ahead with the Diebold. Then
Well, what I'm saying is, isn't it possible, you've got 38 members of the board, isn't it possible that some of them, in watching all the vendors, might say, aha, this AutoMark one allows the disabled to use the ballot that we're using, so we have the same ballot to recount?
I just have a question. How do they do that?
Because it's a voter-assisted system. I've seen it online, and it's got a combination of Braille, it's got some audio, it's got similar things.
stuff.
Similar things to the Diebold. The difference is it allows for that paper ballot to be in place that can be counted if there is a recount.
And so the question we've got here is whether the Diebold paper is acceptable. That's
Yeah.
the question we got.
Well, that's one
It
question.
is giving you that.
Right, that's
Yeah.
one. But I don't think you'll find many people, Tom, who will say that that paper is equivalent to the hand-marked ballots.
Of course not.
No, but I mean, many people think that a recount really can't be trusted unless there is that voter filled out ballot that can be handed. That is the most secure way of knowing that you had a valid election, at least I think. So, I mean, again, if there's a problem with the software in the Diebold, it doesn't matter what was printed out on that paper. I mean, that's what these computer science experts are saying, that software manipulation these days is so easy that you could have a situation where what gets printed out is different than what's being tabulated in the software.
When is that going to be done, this manipulation? I mean, once we get the machines and we program, are they going to, somebody come in the middle of the night and program the
Well,
machines?
we can never forget that, people are not angels. I mean, these things, don't you have to plan your voting system on the idea of the worst case scenario?
Actually, the best case scenario in a voting system is complete paper, counted, absolute, and we've gone away from that. And we've said, we no longer use paper ballots that we put a check mark on and we count it by hand because we've got a better system. The better system does have some potential for some error, but we said, we've got to take the total system and move forward.
Yeah.
If we say every time there's a problem that might come up, we're not going to move forward, that becomes a problem. And I think we'd have the same argument if we were talking different machines. I really do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. But it just seems to me with this particular machine, there have been so many documented problems to lead many of us to believe, why is this machine even being considered? I mean, when you've got lawsuits all over the country, you've got respected computer scientists talking about major security flaws, it just doesn't make sense to me that we would purchase that machine at this time until Diebold can demonstrate conclusively that it's been fixed. Wouldn't you say that?
Well, that's a logical argument. I mean, I would think the main concern on this machine and whether they're choosing it is when the county clerks, I think, were tasked with this, they looked at the machine and Sue did a lot of studying on this machine, but her hands were pretty much, she wasn't allowed to look at every machine. She had to look at this one because, they count it's accessible with the other machines, and then there's also the resolution that said that, we will buy these machines, then we get reimbursed. That was part of the resolution as well. So there is a money component to this.
All right. You know who I think dropped the ball in all this? The Judiciary Committee. Because they initially voted to approve this, grant proposal, whatever it was, on a 5-0 vote. And I look back at the minutes of that meeting on the county's website, and it looks like no one brought up any concerns about the machines. I mean, Sue came in there and said, under Help America Vote Act, we have to have a handicap accessible machine, and the feds or state whoever is giving us money to do this, and so let's do it. And I talked to Bill Wingren about this, and he said, yeah, I'm sitting there in the Judiciary Committee, and I'm thinking, who doesn't want to help handicapped people?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who doesn't want to help children? Who doesn't want to help the elderly, right? But he hadn't heard about this debate. And then when he did hear about this, he was one of the people who said, all right, we at least have to delay to make sure we get some public hearings. And what I still have not gotten an answer to here is, why has Mr. Albrecht tried to take away a meaningful public hearing and get you to vote on this on June 14th.
I guess you'd have to ask him.
Right.
You'd
But
have to
why the vote on June 14th?
I was unaware of that. I mean, in the information system committee meeting we had on the 24th, I mean, I wrote the minutes. I mean, I was under the understanding at that time that we were going to have a public hearing, have a couple different vendors, state election boards there, and it was going to be a public hearing. And then a week later, we were going to have the county board meeting.
Because I'll guarantee
that
you
was my
right-
understanding.
yeah.
So I don't know what transpired. You'd have to ask
Yeah.
Chairman Albrecht.
All right, because I'll guarantee you right now, there's going to be people coming to that meeting that will say, well, since you don't have all the vendors here, we need more time to check out this equipment. I mean, from a practical standpoint, if we don't do that, I think it makes it very, very difficult for the public to have any confidence in these machines at all. And it also makes it look like, for some reason, the county was trying to rush this through. I mean, is that what it looks like to you?
Yeah, and I mean, why is it that we're under the wire now to have this act complied with by September? It was enacted back in 2002. What kind of has happened or not happened to get us to 2006, halfway through the year, and we're at crunch time where something has to be done, and once again we've got to rush into something? What's going on?
I can't answer that.
I don't know. This came up before us. It's first I had heard about these handicapped accessible machines when that resolution came through. Did some studying, not as much as I've done since then. But and I know Sue has made mention of a time factor. I hadn't really pressed her or asked her specifically why now. So I do not know why the impetus is for.
And I don't know if that was the original date, saying by September
Yeah.
the 12th, 2002 or not, or 2006, I don't know. I really don't know.
Want to talk about privacy issues a little bit. I'm assuming that one of the reasons that they have to be, you can't have them be voter assisted is for privacy reasons. And Tony and I were talking a little bit about this off camera before we started taping tonight. Evidently the machines, the way they are set up, they have no real protective screening around them, so that if someone is voting and somebody happens to walk behind them or stands behind them, they can actually see on the screen how they're voting. Were you aware of that?
Well, the machine, the thing actually folds over like this, the way I understand, okay?
Okay.
Any machine that we use, and right now we use booths, when you walk up there and you're filling out your little thing.
Right.
If somebody walks up right behind you,
Yeah.
you can see that. As
sure.
a chief inspector, we don't let people do that. We keep the lines back and say, okay, you can go to the next booth when it's available, but you will sit 8-10 feet behind that.
Okay.
We do not let people do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Another privacy issue, though, deals with the trying to unjam the paper jams. This, too, is from the California Secretary of State, and he said, recovering from printer jams generally involves opening up the printer unit and manipulating the paper tape. This is a sensitive operation. It is analogous to opening up a paper ballot box in the middle of an election and inspecting and manipulating the ballots contained therein. If not performed properly, this could endanger vote integrity and privacy. So that, and there's going to be a jam
Yeah,
at some
and
point.
I have no idea how you unjam that. We have jams on our existing machines.
Yeah.
Okay, I unjam them. Okay,
Right.
I unjam them by taking the ballots that are jammed out. Okay, theoretically, I could look and see what those are.
Right.
Our instructions are not to do that.
Well, sure.
Okay, so you got to have some integrity in your inspectors.
Sure.
That machine, the machines we use now, actually tell you if that ballot has been counted or not. I'm assuming that the other machines will do the same thing. So when you're doing the unjamming, has the vote been counted yet, or is it still, not to be done? But I have not unjammed one of those machines, so I can't really answer that.
Okay, Cheryl?
Okay, so I just want to be sure, the resolution that you guys turned down 2 weeks ago, as we tape this now, and what you will be reconsidering now on the 14th is strictly to coordinate getting the machines
That is
for
correct.
the various municipalities. It's not, you're not, by voting aye, recommending the Diebold machine.
That's
You are
exactly correct.
simply coordinating this.
That's correct.
But couldn't you still say, I'm not going to vote in favor of this because there are concerns here? Or do you feel that that would not be within your purview as the way the resolution is written?
Well, I really believe that nobody voted no on the last one because they didn't want to coordinate. Okay. I think people voted no because they had concerns. You said that. People voted no because we crammed it down their throat. People voted no because why do we have to obey this law? You know, so people could do the same thing this time. You don't have to explain why you vote no. So a person can come in and say, my concern is it's a terrible machine, bad machine, I think was the word that was used, and so I'm going to vote no. But like I said, if they vote no, and I've talked to a couple of municipal clerks as well as Sue has, we will move forward. We'll wait to see what the vote at the time on the 19th was going to be. Now we'll just move forward and go ahead and get the machines. So all we're doing is saying, by saying no, is saying we have some concerns at the county board level, but we have no decision-making thing to say yes or no to the municipalities.
But then the municipalities would have to have the same discussion, wouldn't they?
I would think so, yes.
Right. So
Right now, they say they're satisfied.
So that would mean the Oshkosh Common Council, for example?
Well, I don't know. I mean, these clerks have apparently gotten together and decided that this is the way they want to go, and I don't know if it's something that would come before city councils or town boards.
Right.
And the other thing we certainly don't want to have more than 2 systems out there. If the Oshkosh Common Council decides we're going to have this one, and Nina says we're going to have this one, and Monash says we're going to have this one, plus we still got the existing Diebold, we are going to have a catastrophe out there on counting the votes. And we will make some mistakes. So once again, we're in the integrity of the voting procedure.
Right. But even that to me, multiple systems to me, would be preferable to having a system that has been documented to have problems.
Documented by some to have problems, documented by some to be flawless.
By the manufacturer. The manufacturer in the New York Times of May 11th, they said, we acknowledge the flaw, but we're not going to be able to fix it before the September primary. So I guess we're just supposed to have faith in the September primary that everything is okay. Diebold is essentially minimizing this harm and using this line that only if you have a corrupt official is this a problem. But Maryland didn't believe that. When's the last time you saw a legislative body vote 137-0 for something? That's how badly Maryland felt.
Yeah, I'm just surprised there's 137 legislatures in Maryland. How many do you need? But that's just my opinion. You could go through the whole country, and I'm sure you could find votes like that.
And we'll stay out of what we trust Maryland.
That's just one issue.
Right. How did the clerks? I realize they're competent people; they do their job conscientiously, but it almost seems like this decision was taken out of the hands of the elected officials, in a sense.
Well, it's a municipality decision, okay? So you could say, if the Common Council of Oshkosh, the Common Council of Nina said, we do not want to do that,
right,
city clerk, we are not going to give you any money to do that in the interim, or we're not going to let you do it. I suppose that could be done.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. And I don't know if they would.
Okay, because it just seems to me, in this day and age, with this complicated technology used for voting, there needs to be more eyes looking at this, and that to say that is not to be disrespectful toward the county clerk. I think she does her job very, very well. I think Pam Ubrick does her job in an outstanding way at the city of Oshkosh, but I've read some material in places like the Washington Post and the New York Times that one of the problems has been
I don't read those newspapers. Right. I read on the other side.
But one of the problems has been that when the Help America Vote Act came out, the county clerks across the country were met by voting machine manufacturer lobbyists. So their understanding of the act came from the very people that are selling the equipment. So it would make sense that a county clerk would think, oh, we have to have this touchscreen machine, since most of the information they're getting is coming from that community.
I think that kind of paints a broad brush on all the county clerks. We know in our county that the clerks seem to be agreeable on this machine. It's kind of the broad brush to say that all clerks have agreed with this machine.
No, they tend to have agreed with the interpretation of the Help America Vote Act.
I think everybody would agree with that. We should help handicapped people vote. I think that's kind of maybe, if it was my understanding back at the time, that's kind of how it was sold, like you said before, to help the blind or help the children, and nobody's going to say no to that.
But I also think the county clerks are feeling pressure here. There was a fellow named Bruce Funk in Emery County, Utah, county clerk for 23 years. He got fired a few months ago because he had suspicions about these Diebold machines. He commissioned an investigation of the machines. A computer scientist from Finland named Hurst came in, found the flaws, and they ended up firing the clerk. And Diebold threatened to sue the county for doing this kind of investigation into the machines. I mean, it looks like there's some heavy-handed politics going on in this. And let's face it, Diebold is a very powerful player in Washington and in state capitals. Does that have any role in this, or should it?
I couldn't attest to that. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the weight that Diebold throws, I guess, as yourself is. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that company as far as on the national level.
Right. But is that something, Tom, that we should take into consideration? The fact that this company is a really very powerful player?
Well, I would hate to think we would not buy from a company that's big and powerful.
Well,
No,
but
I would think, to sit back and say the people lobby, of course they do, all companies lobby. We lobby. We call up our state legislatures, we call up our federal legislatures and say, we want you to vote this way. So the fact that a company does that and says, hey, yeah, I would like to have a log, I think they all do
But
that.
Diebold,
Should lawsuits be threatened against
Yeah.
county clerks or against counties for, trying to maintain integrity of elections?
I can't relate to the Utah
Right.
thing, so
Because
I would say
Diebold,
no, but I don't know what the issue is.
Diebold, I mean, I'm not one of the people, and I don't think there are many of these people around that believe in the voting machine conspiracy theory. However, Diebold is the company which had the CEO, Mr. Odell, who said in 2003, I will do whatever it takes to deliver the vote to George W. Bush. And he is the CEO of the company that makes the touchscreen machines. And he also happens to be from Ohio. And now I don't buy all those connections, but then he later apologized for that. And actually what he apologized for was for making the statement in writing. that statement should never have been in writing. But I mean, doesn't that send up a little red flag? I don't believe that there's a conspiracy out there to manipulate elections.
Well, if you believe that, then it would be hard to have to say you had a problem with him saying that.
Well, but I think that, you talk about painting with a broad brush, all these things need to be looked at. Everything, and it just seems to me that when we look at all of these things in their totality, it makes sense at the very least for the county board to say, we're going to hold off on this equipment for a while.
Except we can't do that. All we can do is say we will not coordinate the buy.
Well, then we can say that and let the municipalities take it, and then we'll just have the same conversation with the municipalities, I would think.
Let me ask this. The machines that are being purchased, there's going to be one per polling place.
Correct.
Is it going to be in addition to the machines that are already there, or will it replace one of the machines that's already there?
Well, we have one machine at each polling place now, which is really where we put the ballots in. We have the voting booths in there, so when we say replace anything, no, it won't replace anything. And we'll still have the manual voting booths like we do now. We'll still have the AccuSort counting machine like we do now. We do not expect a lot of use on these machines. Now that's not saying we should buy them because we're not going to use them very much. Don't get me wrong, but they will not be hard. They're complex to use. Requires they got to be programmed each time we vote. So if someone wants to vote and say, I'd like to get in here and vote, and yeah, you can vote on this machine in 10 minutes. Because it'll take us that long to get through the number of people who want to vote on. They're going to say, heck with it, I'm going to vote over here on this. You get into the situation, and I'm not sure where we are on this, is can we reserve this machine strictly for handicapped? And I think the answer is probably no, it'd be accessible for everybody. I look at it a little bit like a handicapped parking spot. Nobody's using it right now, I'll go ahead and use it. I've got a handicapped machine here, and if everybody can use that machine, and you come in your handicap and say, I need to use a handicapped machine, well, you've got 15 people in line before you, kind of thing. So that's an issue that has to be resolved out there too. Go ahead.
One county board supervisor that I spoke with over the weekend said that he estimates that probably only about 24 people will use this kind of machine in Winnebago County. Would you say that that's probably a fair guesstimate? Or
I would say maybe a few more than, but that's reasonable. That's reasonable. We had talked about maybe 4 or 5 per polling place. You got 49 polling places, that'd be a little bit more than that. That's reasonable.
And of course, other people who are not handicapped can use it, as we were just sort of discussing, but no one is required to use it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, a person can come in that's handicapped and say, I want to be helped by my spouse. I want to use the old system. I trust my spouse to circle the ones I said, so yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You have been a poll worker?
Oh, yes, I'm a chief inspector.
Okay, you're chief inspector. And there are other poll workers on the board, right? Claude,
Yes, Claude Thompson is, Pat Brennan is.
All right.
And Joanne Sievert is a.
Okay.
is a-
Claude, at the meeting, the last meeting, Claude seemed to reach very different conclusions than you did about this, and he was coming from a poll worker perspective. You've been a poll worker also, yet you didn't share his concerns.
Well, initially Claude was saying that we didn't have to do it. That we got plenty of places for people to sit down, we got plenty of people we can help them, we can get their wheelchairs. So he wasn't really addressing the fact that we got blind people that want to do it on their own.
Oh, okay. You think it was the blind issue?
Right.
All right, all right. I want to talk a little bit about the recount procedure.
Sure.
All right. Again, I'm sorry to read all this lengthy stuff, but I think our viewers need to hear some of this. If there is a recount, this is what our state elections board says. Now, I don't know how voters can have confidence in this, just from the sheer technicality of it. They say, if a valid petition for a recount is filed under statute 9.01 in an election at which an electronic voting system was used to record and tally the votes cast, each party to the recount may designate one or more persons who are authorized to receive access to the software components that were used to record and tally the votes in the election. The board shall grant access to the software components to each designated person if, before receiving access, the person enters into a written agreement with the board that obligates the person to exercise the highest degree of reasonable care to maintain the confidentiality of all proprietary information to which the person is provided access, unless otherwise permitted in a contract entered into under sub 5. And sub 5 says, a county or municipality may contract with the vendor of an electronic voting system to permit a greater degree of access to software components used with the system that is required under sub 4. If we had a recount with an electronic voting machine, can anyone really believe that that's a process that sounds like it's on the up and up?
I can't respond to that.
It's kind of a lot of conjecture there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what I'm getting at is we just had a recount in Oshkosh, and I think the recount went well because we had those hard copy ballots to count them, all right? And we found that there was some minor human error in the election. But now, when you're playing around with having to purchase software, have people sign confidentiality agreements that they won't, give away software code, have the county contract out with the vendor, don't you think the average person will look at that and say, we can't have any confidence that recount?
I don't think the average person will be even cognizant of that.
Unless some of us make them cognizant of it.
That's your job.
I hope that we do. I mean, seriously, Cheryl, can you imagine, no offense to Dan Becker, I like the guy, but can you imagine Dan Becker in a recount with electronic machines? He'll probably get the Attorney General involved.
It will still be going on.
Yes. We got to put this
I
mic
got
back.
it. So you get me all excited.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
But Bill, you do have a concern about that, don't you? About, say, the recount procedure. Shouldn't a recount procedure be relatively simple?
I would think so. Yes, I do have a concern.
Yeah, and we just don't have that. Did you have concerns about these machines before that last meeting? In other words, had you done some research beforehand, or was it
A little bit with when the resolutions came out.
Right.
That's
Is
when
it-
I started looking into it.
Oh, when the resolution came out?
yeah,
Okay.
when we got our packet of information. I mean,
All right.
I'm not an election board official like Tom is.
Okay. Where you vote in Nina, do they use the optical scan
The
machines?
AccuVote, I think you fill the ballot out and then
Right,
feed it into the machine.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
The entire county uses that.
The entire
Yeah.
county, that's right, the entire county uses it. Okay,
Okay.
Cheryl?
I guess, this was originally going to be going back to committee and then coming back to the county board at its meeting in June, which is always the third Tuesday of the month. Now there's going to be, as we talked about in the beginning of the show, a vote taken on the evening of the 14th. There will be some time for public discussion, public comment, a short public hearing, if you will, and then you'll be able to take a look at these machines that are there, just the Diebold machine, and then a vote will be taken. What would be the harm in delaying the vote Because you weren't originally going to be voting on this on the 14th anyway.
Right.
So what would be the harm in delaying the vote?
You'd have to ask Dave. You know, he made that decision. That's his decision to make as the county board chair.
But as county board supervisors, I mean, couldn't you see where maybe that would be a prudent thing to do?
I'm not sure, and once again, I was surprised at that. I'm not sure many people had changed their mind in the interim.
You said that, is Pat Brennan the chair of the Information Systems
That
Committee?
is correct.
And you're on that committee?
That is correct.
All right. Have you had a chance to talk to him yet about this?
After that committee meeting?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Because it seems like Mr. Albrecht, for whatever reason, took away what that committee wanted to do. It sounded like that committee wanted to have a public hearing.
Correct.
And now we're not going to have that, at least not what we were expecting anyway. And so maybe you might talk to Pat and find out what happened. Maybe
Yeah, I probably will be getting in touch with Pat to find out, because I wasn't aware of that it was going to be a
So I
return
think
meeting.
that Cheryl makes really an important point here. Since there was not going to be a vote on June 14th, then why the pressure to have one now?
Well, exactly, and okay, so maybe in a week's time, nobody would change their mind, but is there even a necessity for taking a vote during the month of June at all? I mean, I guess time is of the essence here in one respect, because if these things have to be in place by September 12th or whatever, you have to have time for your poll workers and so forth to kind of get up to speed on the machine.
And you have to purchase them.
That's true. But could there not maybe be a special meeting called? I mean, obviously, he's called somewhat of a special
That
meeting
is a special
here.
meeting.
See, yeah.
But I'm saying a special meeting perhaps, in early July, so that you can have more time to really look at the various machines that the vendors have out there and make some kind of a decision. And again, I understand what you're saying, Tom, that's sort of not part of your job here. But with so many concerns and so many questions being asked, would it be so harmful for someone to take the lead on this and say, this deserves more time?
I don't have a problem either way. Man, to me, that's Dave's decision. If Dave says we're going to vote on the 14th, we're going to vote on the 19th, or July the 1st, that's Dave's decision. The only concern I would have if we wait too long, because first we got to, as we says, we've got to order the machines, they've got to be delivered, we've got to train the people. That's something that none of us workers have seen yet, so we'll be out there, we've got to be trained in the machine, so if it has the problem with a jam up or whatever, what can we do, okay? And that's probably an all-day thing. So you got a lot of people got to be trained, and we got to get a machine. So I'm not sure what the drop-dead date is.
Okay.
I think that the people were reasonably confident that if we got on the 19th, we were okay. If it goes past that very much, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
We have less than a minute, and I would just urge everybody watching to go to the county website and contact your supervisor, let them know how you feel about this, whether you're supportive or opposed to it. Now is the time to step forward, especially if you have concerns about this technology.
And certainly, anyone who has concerns can also go to the county board meeting on the 14th of
Right.
June. It is now going to be at the county board meeting place, which is the Winnebago County Courthouse, rather than the Coughlin Center. So be sure you're going to the right
It will
place.
be at the county board, at our regular place.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And it
Rather
starts
than the
at 5.
Coughlin Center.
Right.
So.
Starts at 5 o'clock,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, both, for being here. We appreciate it. And
Cheryl.
thanks to you, as always, for joining us. Thanks to Tony. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.